All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's time to get started for the Smurfit Stone Community Advisory Group. My name is Brian Campbell. I will be the facilitator for this evening. It's once again a joint Zoom in-person meeting. We are in the City County Health Department building. Is that correct? And you all know where you're at there on the Zoom. I'll read our CAG mission statement, and then Jerry will start the introduction. So we're all gathered here to serve as a trusted liaison between the community, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Montana Department of Environmental Quality by becoming informed, sharing this information with the public, and engaging in the Superfund process to ensure that the restoration of the former Smurfit Stone mill site is to a healthy ecological state for the future generations. Well, let's do housekeeping. For you folks that are on the Zoom, if you would mute, I see everybody has muted. And then when you're ready to talk, unmute. And if you would bring your screen up so we can see who's talking, we'd appreciate it. Put a hand up and wave, and as time opens up, we'll open you up and ask for your comments. We have a large room today. Elena is running the computer, and she will tell me when folks are looking to have a comment. We have 3-4 guests today that'll be speaking. The meeting will go from now until 7:30 or when we're done talking. So Jerry, if you'd like to go ahead with introductions.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and start?
All right, I'm Brian Campbell. I live in Tucson and interested in the contamination issue. And I'd like to see that property working again. It would be nice to see some taxes. So next.
I'll go. We'll go around this way.
All right.
How about that? So I'm Jerry Dallas, and I'm part of the CAG admin team, longtime Frenchtown resident, and I actually also chair the West Valley Community Council.
So my name is Carlin Roberts. I work for New Fields Consulting, taking notes on behalf of the PRPs today.
Moira Davin with DEQ.
William George with Montana Department of Environmental Quality.
Allie Archer with EPA. Ella Bradley. I'm a student at the university.
Julia Crocker at the Clerk Ford Coalition.
Outside with the Missoula Valley Water Quality District.
Bruce Sims with the SCAG administrative team, resident of Tucson.
David Schmetterling, Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks.
Elena Evans, Missoula Valley Water Quality District. Should we go to the back of the room?
Yep, start with Shibu.
Shibu Aarons, I'm with Senator John Testra's office.
Elton B. I work for the Water Quality District. I'm Peter Nielsen. I think I'm the only one here that's unaffiliated.
And hi, I'm Jen Harrington. I'm part of the admin.
So for the folks that are on Zoom, were you able to hear folks, us talk here? And okay, we got thumbs up. Thanks, Brian.
Let's start online with Al.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. My name's Al Basil with the EPA. Just here to support Allie and Dana, and all of you as well.
Okay, Brian.
Hi, Brian Barkariak with the Natural Resource Damage Program. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Carolina.
Hi, everyone. This is Carolina Ballou. I'm with Montana DEQ, and I'm the Federal Superfund Section Supervisor.
Hey, Catherine.
With EA, I'm sorry, under the weather, so you don't want me to turn on my camera.
Been there. How about Bunny?
Hi, I'm the scribe.
Great. Chris Wardell.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Wardell. I'm the section manager for community involvement for EPA.
Hey, Craig.
I'm Craig Beebe. I'm the GIS and environmental health specialist with Missoula Valley Water Quality District.
Okay, Don.
Don Latham, COVID survivor.
Vicki Watson.
Vicki Watson, University of Montana Watershed Clinic, and a member of the Clark Fork Coalition.
Trevor?
Yeah, Trevor Selch. I'm the fisheries pollution biologist with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and I'm out of Helena.
Okay. And then Mr. Winter, I don't see your first name.
If you're talking about me, it's Bob Winnegar. I'm the
sorry.
regional environmental engineer for the Forest Service.
Welcome. Ying.
Oh, I put you back last time too. I'm sorry.
Hi everyone, my name's Ying Yu. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll start over. My name's Ying Yu. I'm the environmental health risk assessor at the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services.
Okay. Did I miss anybody?
Yes, I'm Kat.
Yeah, they're just online. Okay. Great. Welcome, everybody.
Excellent. All right. So for the agenda today, we have Moria Davis will be discuss community involvement opportunities. And then Will or Allie, you have a few minutes to discuss the upcoming technical meeting to address the additional sampling requested by the county. And then I didn't say Jonathan and Carlin.
Yeah, I mean, the legislative session is going pretty crazy right now. So it was kind of him doing this the last two meetings. If he hops on, we'll have him. Otherwise, I'll touch base on our conversations with him.
Okay, excellent. And then Elena, you'll go ahead with the county's objection to the water rights.
Yep.
Okay, so if we're no burning issues right now, I'd like to get started. Moria, DEQ.
All right, thank you. And just wanted to give a heads up. We did drive in from Helena and there is some snowflakes flying outside. So we are probably going to try to sneak out about 6:45 or 7 just so we can get home before the roads get too bad. But Dana is in Denver, so he wasn't able to be here tonight. He sends his apologies. In terms of community involvement, we had a great coffee hours, I should say, after the last KEG meeting. Appreciate those who joined us, and we're looking to do more of those. So I think what we'll start doing is rather than having them early in the morning, we're looking to drive up similar to what we did today and just come a little bit earlier and maybe have coffee hours in the late afternoon. I understand if you don't want to drink coffee late, we'll go to a place that has tea or decaf, but looking to do something maybe a little bit later in the day right before these meetings. So hope you can join us for those, and we'll let you know before the next KEG meeting, like what time we would be here and what those would, where we would meet. And also probably depend on where you all are meeting on the next one too. So, and then the other thing I wanted to just bring up is the tag option. So just wanted to touch base and see if there's anything that I guess DEQ or EPA could do to support you in getting the tag grant going.
Yes, Jerry.
And we can talk about it offline too. If that's
No, David Brooks has committed to help me with the workspace, which is a nightmare.
Okay.
So I think I'm in good hands.
Okay.
But if I need any help with that.
Okay.
I mean, it's not easy, but as I understand it, that's the only way EPA will accept a grant is through workspace.
Right, whatever cease is required. I mean, he's happy to jump on a call and work through it too, Jerry. No. Okay. And
tried a lot.
I'll say Alan, because they might know more about that process too. I like to look at the invoices and that's it usually.
Well, we have till September and I'm confident that, I can figure it out by September.
Yeah, and I'll make a note of that too, and I can check in with Dana and see if we can see if that's a requirement or if there's anything that we.
It is a requirement. Yeah, absolutely. That's the only way they'll accept.
Okay. Sounds good. I think those are the main updates I have. Dana can join us next month to have more.
I do have a thought, and it's probably as much my fault as anyone's, but if we did a better job of getting our minutes into the Frenchtown newsletter that comes out from the school, I think we get more public participation. You know, it's about the only real local way of conveying things. And, you know, so if we could get the Zoom address in that and just the basics of what we're going to be talking about the next week, the next month, that would be good. Just a thought.
I think it's a great idea. I think that's one of the things that when we get to agenda items, I think we'll definitely talk about that at our next meeting, about outreach and education and just some different ways to communicate with different groups that we need to speak with.
Yes.
That's good.
I do have a question about the coffee clutch. In as much, I guess
coffee clutch.
I'm not sure how to identify it. This is an informal gathering with EPA and DEQ and anybody else, but those are the two representatives.
Yeah, so the idea is just because we're now doing in-person meetings, and I know there's a number of you we've kind of reached out to also meet with, but just providing an opportunity where we're in town, we're coming to the meetings. We'd love to, chat with any of you that have questions or want to talk through anything or just want to get to know us. So the coffee hours are more, we'll just let you know what coffee shop we're at, similar to the one you attended at the last time. And anyone's welcome to join and ask questions and chat with the team.
Excellent. So I did attend a coffee clutch. It was informal and it was informative. It's nice to not be in a meeting, just a one-on-one, and there wasn't very many people. So it was easy to talk, easy to get my ideas out. So I encourage folks to pay attention to when this particular activity happens and allude yourself or go. Anything else there? Are we done?
I think I'm good.
Thank you. I think it would be good though too to keep having Gary's idea about more of a community event on the agenda and figure out ways that perhaps EPA or DEQ could support that. I know that oftentimes there's difficulties with or ways to figure out food or figure out speakers. Certainly, Jerry's talked to Steve about access, but I'm sure that's something that would need to be facilitated there as well.
I think we need to pick a date.
Yeah.
Get that on our radar. Okay. And I don't know if does everybody feel like we can wait until an April meeting, or do you feel like we should try and get that done here sooner than later?
I think a discussion after the main events would be appropriate.
Okay.
And then we can discuss that.
Okay, that sounds great.
We're now up to Allie and Will. If you would like to discuss your upcoming technical meeting, addressing the request for more sampling.
Yay.
Yeah.
Not a ton has changed since last month, just that we have it scheduled. We just met with Elena and Todd today to just discuss who is there. We know it's Missoula County is who our RA responded to, but that it represents the larger community stakeholders and trustees. And so just working with them to make sure this is the correct format and that we have those groups represented in the meeting. We have our first meeting set, and I think we discussed there might be additional meetings. The goal of it is to come to consensus on a data sampling plan that will address the concerns that were presented in that memo of additional sampling. And so our overall goal is just to work with the county, the community, the stakeholders, the trustees to get consensus on a sampling plan. And we feel the best way is to sit down with a smaller technical group to discuss the specifics. And then if that needs to go back to the stakeholders to review and provide input, we're just really open to how to get consensus on that data plan. And we didn't want to be creating it in a vacuum without that input. So the first meeting will be in 2-ish weeks.
March 16th.
2 weeks. It will be streamed online for folks who want to listen in. It's like 9 a.m. to 1. So it's not closed door or secretive by any means. It just to have a smaller group in the room discussing the sampling plan, we think would be the most productive.
And this will be streamed online on Teams?
On Teams, yeah. Moira and Dana are going to use or do the Teams. Will and I will probably be pretty interactive with the group on kind of driving filling out our sampling template, making sure we're getting input from Missoula County and kind of directing that work progress. But that's really the only update Elena or Todd can jump into if you guys.
I mean, there's copies of that memo over there. And so I think that is a good start on, that's framing up the conversation.
Yeah, that was the catalyst for the follow-up meeting.
The memo that prompted the movement towards more sampling, we'll have that in the minutes also.
Sure.
We have it here and it'll be placed in the minutes. That would be good.
Yeah.
So the history is that CAG and the county requested additional sampling. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's kind of just on the shoulders of everybody who's been working on this since the mill shut down. So these comments are a summary of the comments that have been written by the CAG, the trustees, the stakeholders, the water quality district since, 2010. And then this just synthesized it. When Casey Becker came to town and met with the commissioners and the CAG in that event at the Holiday Inn, there was a lot of discussion about what the concerns were and what the history was and what some of our key areas of concern were. And so, instead of just sending all those letters again, we worked with APT to also synthesize, distill down the key components of it. But when we talked earlier today too, there were some smaller things that obviously didn't make it in here that we're still following up and hoping to get some more feedback on from EPA and DEQ when it comes to very specific requests that we've made before. So in my envisioning of this, these are the broader overarching themes and concerns that we have. And then hopefully, we'll bring our old comment letters and the letters from the stakeholders and everything as well to hopefully get that included. And there have been conversations about how that could result in the human health risk assessment being looked at again. And, there's some other pieces going on in other areas that may also be providing hopefully more data to inform the best way to remedy the mistakes of the past and fulfill the goals of CERCLA and the Superfund process. But if people have concerns or there's anything people want to talk to me or anybody else, please, I certainly don't want it to be a closed process. And I've been trying to reach out to folks, and some of you may have seen a meeting request to try and talk through and make sure some of the things that were said when, earlier on in the process when I wasn't here are conveyed appropriately.
I do want to add, I am out of the state on April 6th, which I think is going to be an important CAG. It's going to be right after that meeting. But if there's a time that we could come up for a coffee hour, I can be up here to discuss. And I'm sure Elena and Todd and others who have attended or listened can convey it too. But heads up, I won't be here in the April CAG. But if we can set a time that I come up around then to answer any questions too. But there will be a lot of people attending that can speak to it. Just want to give that heads up.
Okay. But that would be super. So this meeting is going to be March 16th. That'll discuss the sampling.
Our kickoff meeting, yeah.
Yeah. You can kind of think about it like taking that memo and then translating it into actual work plan. So that's the basic idea.
Right.
Yeah.
So it looks like we had a question back there.
It's a question. What parties are you seeking consensus with?
Yeah. So with we received the memo from the Missoula County Commissioners, and so that's been our like point of contact. But I think that Elena speaks this well too. It's the memo came from a larger group. And so I guess looking to the stakeholders, trustees, and community to really discuss to make sure that the memo does encompass the concerns and that we're including that in the data plan. But that's been our primary point of contact is Missoula County, is that's who we received the memo from. And so we're working through that. The people at the meeting currently are EPA, DEQ, the PRPs, Missoula County, and NRDP is also in the meeting. So I think that's who we have right now working through the work plan, but it is an open process. And if we need to invite additional folks or share a draft work plan, we just want to be responsive to the concerns expressed by all of the entities, and that the data plan kind of answers those questions.
A follow-up on that, I guess. So is all the parties that requested sampling, the agencies and the PRPs, trying to agree on a sampling plan for additional sampling? Well,
this is our kickoff meeting.
Okay.
That was my next question. How many meetings do you
I
think?
want to gauge like if the meeting is productive, if the right folks are there, and then we can set additional follow-up meetings. We'll get through this one and then decide that worked really well. Let's keep having them with that group in that time frame, or however is best to proceed. And so we've never done a sampling plan this way, and I think this is like the best way to start it. And then if we need to pivot and do it a little differently moving forward, we can, but we'll definitely sit down and see how it goes and how we work through it and if it's a good format.
So I had a similar question. So I know that it's a kickoff and it's just probably one of few. Is there, I don't know if limit is the right word, but is there a point where EPA says, no, this is the bottom line and we're not going to sample that much? Is there a point where EPA has a breaking point, if you will?
So the goal of the meeting is to be able to have a sampling plan that addresses concerns.
Okay.
I think by working through that process, we'll get to that consensus of how much data is needed or how many samples from this area are needed for the community, for the group to feel comfortable moving forward.
Okay.
And that's going to be a discussion, and it is a negotiation in all sampling plans. So I know we're not, I think that it has to be within reason and it has to be science-based and to answer a specific question about the ongoing characterization. And so that's just going to be how we're going to work through. Your question is concerns about the sludge characterization, which holding ponds, all of them, where at, how many samples would build comfort. And we're going to be driving it. So I think we'll be like, this is what we would suggest, or these areas, and get that feedback on, does that sound good? No. Well, what does? And so I think it's going to just be a discussion, and we'll bring our technical expertise and everyone will have that technical expertise in the room to work through that. So it needs to be reasonable. It needs to be to answer a specific question. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of a similar question. I guess I'm just kind of a little confused with the process. So, the CAG and the trustees put together, put together this document.
Yeah.
And Casey Becker was here and said, we want to address these concerns and ensure that the additional sampling is conducted. So because the trustees, the stakeholders, community members have said that they didn't think it was adequate, the EPA has conducted. So at this point, it sounds like you're relying on Missoula County to organize this, but it seems like it should be coming from the EPA. And I'm just wondering, like, who you invited to this meeting, and who you expect to participate in the development of this plan.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see the tribes on there, and we weren't invited.
Yeah.
And I don't know about the Fish and Wildlife Service or the Forest Service or other trustees.
Yeah.
So,
I can answer that. So Casey responded to the commissioners to a memo that Missoula County put forth. And so I just worked with Elena to say, who do you need to include? And if we need to include additional trustees, we're open to that. We're responding to the concerns presented in the memo, we are organizing the meeting and organizing the development of the work plan. We just need input because it's pretty broad stroked. And so we didn't feel comfortable putting dots on a map to answer the questions that were put forth to us. So we want to work with you all. And if that means having the additional trustees there, we're happy to include additional folks. We have a limited space in the room now, but if we need a bigger room. So I'm sorry that wasn't extended and we can extend it now. It's flexible on attendees. And our only goal is to be able to move forward answering the collective concerns with this sampling plan. And so who all needs to be in the room, I think, is kind of spurred by who helped develop the memo, because that's what we're just responding to the concerns in the memo. And so however that's best collaborated with.
And then to answer the other part of the question, we felt like this idea would be the most efficient, like coming up with this DQO process. So instead of taking that memo and then coming up with a specific plan and picking, density of samples here, there, and everywhere, bringing it to everybody else, and then you edit and go back. Have everybody in the room and kind of work through that so then it can be a collaborative process. And by no means did we ever expect to put the onus on Missoula County to do this. We just thought it'd be a little bit more efficient and collaborative if we can have this beginning conversation to flesh out some of those larger ideas. Then we do the bulk of the work there. We never expected Missoula County to do it.
Frankly, I'm fine with Missoula County doing it. I mean, I think there's a lot of comfort and trust there. But I was just wondering, since Missoula County was the one that put this memo together and outlined the additional needs, it seems like it's kind of time for the EPA to respond. And this is perhaps what that response is, that you're going to have a meeting and organize it, but it's just wasn't clear who was responsible for it and who's going to take ownership of it.
And
Is that clear? I'm sorry. I feel like I should clarify that. Is it clear now? Who will take ownership of it and respond?
I'm not that clear. I mean, it sounds like it. I mean, I was kind of asking some rhetorical questions, but I guess I think I'm clear moving forward, but I just don't know kind of where how we got where we are now. There seems to be confusion over that. So, and if I'm mistaken, please let me know. I'm not privy to everyone's conversations or how people have been involved in this. And other people's awareness of this. So
I guess, we talked about like how best to approach this, and we came up with the idea of the DQO process. Like if I were to submit a QAP to Ally as a representative DEQ, I would go through this process and outline it. Like, these are my objectives. And this is how I propose to meet that objective. 7-step process. So we thought maybe that would be most appropriate here. And then I guess we probably could have done a better job at explaining how we got there. But we thought this would just be the most efficient way of doing it.
I feel like we've only expressed it like at the last CAG of like, the next step for us is going to be to have a technical meeting to make sure that the sampling plan. So we are the ones that request, and that's what we said the last meeting too, like EPA has to request the PRPs.
Oh no, and I was absolutely.
We're not. Yeah.
You said that we're going to have this or that you were going to arrange a technical meeting, and then I never heard from you about it. And
okay.
I heard that there was one. That's what I'm getting at.
So just that if we would have reached out to a wider audience to be included on the technical meeting, is that the confusion?
Yeah, or just I mean, you've meant it seems like not all the trustees were invited.
Yeah.
In terms of details and sampling, I don't know how much you're planning to, how much you plan to accomplish. Like Peter said, short amount of time, but I didn't see whether like Eric Green was going to be.
We just responded to the memo. So I think that's what I mean by,
That's a component of the sampling.
I don't want to speak to us, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to either.
And I think I just want to clarify as well that I did make clear that Missoula County doesn't speak on behalf of the trustees. So
is it too, I'm just going to say it. I just feel like there needs to be a little more involvement from trustees, the tribe, especially FWP, just to have a different look. And, we've all the different groups, all the different stakeholders have on every single occasion submitted public comment. And I would really like to see them at the table. I think that's fair.
For sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Sherry.
Yeah.
That's good. There's somebody in the waiting room, sorry.
Oh.
So I guess maybe we can have like a follow-up on who we missed.
Mm-hmm. And if you just want to submit the invite list, and I mean, I feel like I know it's difficult to manage when you're trying to get a data sampling plan, but I feel like it negates. I think engagement is really important. Mm-hmm. And I think the different groups that have always responded to public comment, I just really believe strongly that they need to be at the table.
Okay. Yeah.
And we have a question in the back.
I have another question. I was a veteran of the Milltown process, worked really closely with Russ Forba and Diane Hammer and other folks that we do as well. And Mr. Federline was involved as well. And one thing that worked really well that we had going on there that is, I don't remember what we called it. It was the technical advisory group. Mm-hmm. County was on it, Clark Fork Coalition was on it. CFR Tech, which was the Clark Fork River Technical Advisory Committee, was on it. And whenever there was a work plan for work that was coming up, we had a meeting. Mm-hmm. We had site tours. It was separate from the formal negotiation process that you guys have, which the trustees have a seat at the table, but many of these other groups did not. Mm. Something that really worked well, and it's something that you might consider doing moving forward, because it really paid off with working well. Because there are some pretty technically capable people working on this project from the interest groups. And I think it would behoove you to think.
Thank you. That's good.
Because anybody online want to weigh in?
This could be the beginning.
Is that the BTEC you're talking about?
No.
Oh, that was at Smurfit.
Okay.
Oh, instead of Milltown.
Yeah.
So
but
that was, I think, just in terms of the process that began kind of after I guess that's not true. I'm trying to remember. I was going to say it was after the, record of decision was announced, but it wasn't. It was before that because we're evaluating the different alternatives during that whole process. But yeah, we had monthly meetings or even weekly, toward the implementation.
Well, during construction, it was whenever a major phase of construction was on, the work plan was evaluated. Public got a chance to have some input, but it was outside the negotiation process. We still could work with those two things.
Ideal. And that was just a regular tag group?
It was. I don't know I don't recall the acronym for it, but it was. Yeah, it was a variety of different groups that worked together. And the power company representatives were there, and
Because me and Ellie, we did have a conversation where we thought a tag group would be very beneficial.
And maybe it was a tag.
Smurfit Stone, and that's why I think Moira kind of opened up with that.
I don't.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
I think the CAG has recognized that financially a tag right now is a little difficult, but we're working towards that.
There.
Yeah.
And that's why we wanted to offer any help that we could provide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Transition.
So I want to paraphrase that.
Brian had other Brian had some things.
Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Yes.
I'll weigh in just a little bit. I think, to add on to what David was saying, I think there was some confusion around the meeting. And maybe it's on our fault. I think last month, it kind of sounded like you wanted to keep the meeting small and kind of left it up to Missoula County on who to invite. And just listening to this discussion, I think David brings up some very good points. I know we've been missing Mary and, we haven't had a lot of representation from the tribes, but if we are opening it up, I think it is worth inviting. I do think it's important to invite the tribes. And then that makes me think, Bob, from Forest Service hasn't been invited. And also, Brian Balmer from the Fish Wildlife Service hasn't been invited. So if we are opening up, I think it would be worth it for probably EPA to reach out to those people and see if they want to attend. And obviously, you know, we can help you do that if we can reach out to, and Bob's on the line too, so we could just talk to him right now.
Bob, you're invited.
Cross that off the list.
Yeah, we are happy. I can follow up, Brian, for sure. That's great feedback. It did not mean to be exclusive to the trustees. I did try to coordinate. My assumption at the time was that the memo was derived from trustees, community stakeholders. And so by reaching out to the memo author, that would be who could coordinate, who needed to be in the room, did not mean to exclude anyone. Happy to invite all the trustees. So I think that's still a very manageable group to work with. And I can follow up with those invites. So
good. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Hey, Rick.
Hey.
Welcome. So if I could paraphrase just a minute here, this meeting on the 16th is to set up a sampling plan, or at least get the ideas together.
Yes.
Do you need technical experts on sampling, or do you need people who are less technical and more interested in having their ideas presented in a plan?
I think that the memo should have had everyone's ideas presented. It's like pretty broad, and that we would want the technical experts to work through the specifics with us is our initial goal. If that's not appropriate or would suit the needs, then we can kind of pivot. But currently we're asking for the technical representatives from now the trustees, Missoula County, to sit down with EPA, DEQ, and the PRPs to develop a specific sampling and analysis plan to move forward with, to collect the data to address these concerns.
Okay, so a fish biologist or a water sampling person
will be
appropriate.
Yes, we did have a biological technical advisor group. I will reach out to the same stakeholders because it was natural resource trustees and then Missoula County at the end. So we can just broaden, we'll bring that back.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Super. That I think I understand it now. And when you can get it through my old brain, you've done well. And I appreciate that.
Yay.
So any other questions from the group for Allie? Does anybody on the Zoom have questions?
At that time, how would they know that if the idea was that the killers show up?
Rick, I think you're needing to mute. There you go. Rick, you want to, mute up.
Elena can do it.
Oh, very good. Okay, we're done.
Les was asking a question. Yes.
I think he was having a conversation.
Oh. All right. Any other questions?
I have one that's kind of related.
Okay.
Is it illegal by state law to sample the dumps because they've been capped?
No.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to make that.
the only, I guess the only, it's not illegal. No.
It's private property. It wouldn't go out there. This is
all right.
Well, there goes our party. I want to.
Well, it's not illegal, but there is
recommended
an 18-inch layer clay cap on there, which is preventing precipitation.
But not
the rationale is that
liner.
Yes,
correct.
No liner. But the rationale is the down gradient monitoring wells aren't showing a need to break that cap. So if you break that cap, you would create a conduit for any kind of precipitation to go through there, and it could potentially mobilize more contaminants.
Yeah, that's virtually absurd when you have a groundwater table that comes up to the bottom of that area every year. So that argument doesn't seem to me to fly very well. And also it just brings up my misgiving what's happened. We've done a lot of sampling, or a reasonable amount of sampling, on where contaminants might be migrating, but we haven't ever focused on where they are. And that's what I'd like to see this design do.
I think that is captured in the memo very well of that additional need for characterization. So I think that will be discussed at the sampling meeting.
It's a lot harder to sample where things might migrate than it is to sample where they are.
Right.
In terms of money and time. And so I don't understand why it went down the way it did. And just from my background, it wouldn't be the way I would have run that sampling design.
And that actually leads into another handout that is available over there that Todd put together on nice dumps and landfills and just kind of worked to better summarize a series of comments to date that have been provided as to concerns and gaps in sampling or understanding.
Yeah, no, I think that we definitely hear you. And I think
Very
that's
valid
something
concerns.
we're looking to be able to collect data to address.
I just have a comment on the gap issue. This is not it's not clay. It's a local soil, local ranch, some Skaters Ranch. It's silty clay. It's like Missoula silt. It's not a compacted clay cap like you have on a landfill. It doesn't meet any contemporary landfill capping design standards. You have punch holes in there. You can dig a hole in that cap and put that clay back just like it was because it's nothing fancy. Okay? Seriously. I don't want to hear that argument.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right. Any other discussions for you guys?
There was ask Peter to please speak up when he asks questions.
Okay.
So I think we have that covered, but I guess what we're gathering here is back of the room, speak up. The microphone's may not hear as well.
Okay. Thank you, Allie. I think if you guys are done, you're excused.
Thank you.
For the snow event.
Drive safe.
Yeah, thanks.
And you just keep it on that side of the mountains where it's turnabout.
We saw it coming in today and like, uh-oh, we checked the weather. We thought, no.
Yeah, I think we're all ready for it to be done.
Yeah.
So we're on to the last speaker. We're going to use Jonathan Carlin. Is he on?
I bet they're still in.
I think they're likely
Still on the floor.
still in session.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'll see you around with another one.
Follow up what you could.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
So thanks for coming over. So, well, I won't pull it up, but there have been conversations, as all of you saw at the last couple of meetings. Representative Carlin, who represents the Frenchtown area, the place where Smurfit is, had attended meetings early on to see what he could do to kind of bring the concerns of the community to the forefront of the legislature and one of our elected bodies. And so that's something that he attended the last meeting to talk about, that he's been in contact with the CAG leadership team. And so, the legislature is chugging along, but there are still opportunities and there are still opportunities. And this is what I was talking. This is how I got in trouble. You can get too close to the camera. But we're working with Representative Carlin on language for a resolution that would essentially state that the community are invested in and support full cleanup, that given the history of pulp mill, bleaching, contamination on site, the large volume of wastewater streams, the large volume of sludge, the fact that it is currently being investigated under CERCLA, the fact that it used to be and should once again be a cornerstone of the Frenchtown community. All of that information kind of needs to come to the forefront of the legislature. And so there is draft language that Representative Carlin will be working on and working with drafters at the legislature to kind of outline that and gain the support of the full body of the legislature to kind of like draw that line in the sand. Others in the room can speak to it more, eloquently than I can, but
There were turning points in previous restorations, particularly Milltown, when Governor Martz talked about removal of the dam. And so although, there is that circle snake and we follow it, there are also requirements that the governor of the state of Montana has to sign off on any record of decision. And if our legislative body has a clear understanding and sets forth clear expectations for the outcome of what that cleanup is, then it is more likely that that will be achieved. So
I thought you did
we shall see what happens there. And it's most probable that if that resolution should not succeed this session, given transmittal deadlines and just everything that's going on, we'll likely have another session to go at it. So if that comes to pass, if there is something at the legislature, then it'd be great to have, community members from Tucson, downstream, Mineral County, folks who are impacted to testify or to reach out to their legislators or folks that they may know at the legislature. So, the KEG email correspondence will go out to keep everyone apprised of that. And I think we should all appreciate and thank Representative Carlin that he is interested and invested in bringing that forward as an opportunity to kind of also set the stage for the state. I know that we often hear from Will on behalf of DEQ, but there are a number of other parts of the state that are involved. And I'm not just talking about NRDP, I'm also talking about the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, as well as we have representatives of DPHHS. And so there are many different facets to the state and the state interests, and this is just one more way in which we can highlight and underline the outcomes that are necessary for the community.
I just want to say thank you so much. I thought you did a great job on the resolution, and it was really well. It covered a lot of different things that we've been talking about for the last umpteen years, and really appreciate your work on that. Thank you.
And that resolution is sitting over here?
Well, no, I printed off a lot of things, but Representative Carlin, it's still, I don't know, it's still in his court. Like, we provided a draft of what the KEG thought would be important, and there's still some legislative language working through. So I didn't, if he was here, I would have offered to share it on the screen, or we would have printed out copies. But I think without him being present in the room, I don't want to set forth the expectation that that's how the resolution will end up. If people want to see it or they want to take a look at it, given that caveat, I'm happy to share it on my computer, but it'll likely go through changes. And I didn't want to put him in a corner on what that language would be if he or legislative drafters thought portions of it needed to change, or he talked with other legislators and they were invested in slightly different language or something.
So it's not for public dissemination just yet.
It hasn't been introduced.
It hasn't been introduced. It'll change a lot before it's introduced.
It has to go through it.
Committee meeting, hearing schedule.
Yeah. So it's, I provided the general concept. Anyone who's attended these meetings in the past will know the spirit and nature of the resolution and the outcome of hoping that the berms are removed, the floodplain is restored, the dumps and sludge ponds and site is remediated so that the economic viability of that large piece of property can once again play an important role in the Frenchtown community.
Yeah, it was well written.
Questions? Do we have any questions from the? Oh, we have two.
We covered those. I got those on this computer. That was but thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Is that
any questions online? Once there is a draft resolution, we'll get that distributed.
Okay. That's excellent. So that ends the primary agenda items for our meeting. We're now open to public comments on non-agenda items.
Well,
Or do you have more?
I was gonna talk about our
Oh,
water rights
water
objection.
Oh, excuse me.
But
Yes.
if people, I mean, that's like its own can of worms. So we want to cover other topics before we delve into the very
No.
quick topic of water rights.
We have 30 minutes, so that's.
Okay, let me just get this computer working. All right, Smurfit Stone Site Water Rights Objection. If you look back at the notes and the minutes from the last meeting, you'll see that we had Jim Nave come and talk about water rights. WGM Group, Julie Merritt and Steve Malsom were also present in their room to talk about their intention when it came to those water rights. There's a lot going on in this. I'm going to go through it quickly, but I spent a considerable amount of time on this, so I'm happy to go in more detail or depth with anyone who's interested. So first of all, here is that Superfund snake and where we are in the process. If you see, we're still right here, and the update as a function of that additional sampling, we will not complete the remedial investigation likely until 2025. And so we're still here on the top. We haven't actually even turned a corner yet. So that's where we are in the Smurfit sampling. As we move through, there's remedial design, remedial action after the record of decision, but then there's still operations and maintenance before, the site is good to go. And so one of the pieces that can be incorporated into the record of decision, or that will be in place until the remediation is complete, is a institutional control. And so an institutional control can be something that is a groundwater control area, so somewhere where you can't use the groundwater, or there are another of other instances, but for this, that groundwater control area is key. And that means you can't put a residential well in, you can't pull out the water, it's unsafe to drink or use for a beneficial purpose as a function of the contamination associated with it. And so we're not quite yet at the point in this decision circular process where that's determined. Okay, that's where we are. Next is water rights. So very, very simply, water rights in the West are first in time, first in right. And this is a function of how, the West under United States authority and the way in which the US law was pushed forward in territorial expansion. And so it's first in time, first in right. And that doesn't speak to tribal rights and all of that, but this is just how our water law came to be. So if you were there first and you started using the water, you had the senior right. And that means even if it was at the lower end, you got to use that water. And as a function of that, water law is kind of departure. It's its own kind of beast as things try to get remedied in this process, and our society changes from when this was established as predominantly mining and ranching and irrigation to now where it is predominantly, at least as we look to the future, going to be much more residential focused, particularly in this valley and in this basin. So some more terminology, but we'll tie it to the site now. So the point of diversion is where the water comes from. So at Smurfit, that's the Fairbanks wells. And then there was another mill well field that was over here, but we'll just focus on the Fairbanks well field and then know that we objected to both on exactly the same premise. So the point of diversion is here. The place of use, it was predominantly the industrial core. But then that water was distributed across the wastewater treatment ponds. And so there was also use there in essence, because there was consumptive use as that water evaporated off of those ponds and, was held prior to being discharged to the Clark Fork River, either through seepage through the ponds or directly into the Clark Fork River through their discharge permit that was issued through DEQ. And then purpose, beneficial use, what is the water being used for? So historically, that was an industrial use. So as it moved from black liquor to white liquor, et cetera, through the process, there was tons of steam generated. There was also a lot of concern when it came to fire protection. And so some of the diverted water was also held in order to combat potential fires, of which there were a decent number. And then there was a small amount used for mill employees and things like that. So there will not be a pulp mill here in the future. And so what this process did and what Julie Merritt described and what Jim Nave focused on the last meeting was the diverted and the consumptive use. And so if you think about this with irrigation, especially flood irrigation, you diverted a whole lot in order to get all that water across the field, but you didn't consume it all. And that's also the case here with how much water was diverted and how much was consumed. So they went through a very detailed process with the wastewater treatment engineer at the site signing off on how much was consumed in different processes. They used the discharge permits and things like that. Fine. So after they calculated that amount, they put in this application for marketing for mitigation. And so what that is, hey, we are not going to have a pulp mill here anymore. This water will have to be changed. The ability to use this water will have to be changed because there won't be a pulp mill. And this is how much we've calculated was historically used, diverted, and then consumed. Great. But and this down here just shows some of the discharge paperwork that was used and how they started calculations. But the key thing is in this application, they changed the point of use from groundwater from Missoula's sole source aquifer to downstream on the Clark Fork River from the point of diversion. And so what that does is it essentially moves that giant cone of depression and the millions of gallons per day of water that was pumped out. And the intent was to be able to move that to the Clark Fork River where it could be sold to anyone who was using it downstream. So it severs it from the property, it moves it from groundwater to surface water, and it allows them to sell it where dilution has served to reduce the contamination associated with the ongoing industrial use of the site. And so this is problematic given where we are in the CERCLA process. And it's also problematic in the context that within Montana state law, if you are going to transfer a water right that is as voluminous as the one associated with Smurfit stone, you have to go from a preponderance of evidence to clear and convincing evidence. I am not a lawyer, but that is a stark detail. That is a very important difference. And the only part of the water rights change application that referenced water quality was this statement that I will now read to you. Similarly, there will be no negative effect on water quality by leaving water in the ground for marketing for mitigation purposes. As indicated by Woosner, the water chemistry in the Missoula aquifer closely mirrors the quality of the Clark Fork River. Reduction and eventual cessation of pumping the Fairbanks wells will not alter the existing interaction between the river and the aquifer as it pertains to water quality. So we submitted our objection, and you can object because it's a very formulaic process. You have to check the boxes and then you can make the arguments. So we objected to everything except diversion works. And we did so on the basis of water quality. And water quality districts are specifically authorized to contest water rights, change of use on the basis of water quality, as that's the primary purpose under state law for water quality districts to exist. DEQ may do the same thing, but has historically not. DEQ has not objected to water rights changes or involved themselves considerably in the water rights process to date. And neither have water quality districts, actually, until now. So what we contend, and kind of the basis of this argument, is that the water, the groundwater at Smurfit Stone is still doing industrial work. It is still fluxing water from the site to the Clark Fork River. And what you can see up here is the manganese concentrations and, you know, how high they are. Oh, wait, that's the other mouse. Okay. So basically, this isn't even diving into it too deeply, but the means of arsenic are 7 times as high as those in the rest of the water quality district, and the manganese are 17 times as high. And that's the means, and that's taking into account, you know, wells that aren't necessarily in the industrial core or that are up gradient groundwater wise. And like, I can dig into this more, but basically the statement that was included in the water rights application is not true for water quality and the understanding of how the site is interacting with both the aquifer and the Clark Fork River. And we are still in this process. So as I set the stage for initially, it is too premature to necessarily change the water right when that water may also be required or necessary for remediation. It is unknown or uncertain if the water right is changed downstream and someone starts growing fields of lettuce down at Noxon and consuming the water there. And that's a hypothetical. Can then, as a part of this circular process, water be pumped out of the aquifer, treated, or put into something that can, you know, perhaps reverse or settle or sparge? You know, there's a number of different remediation techniques. Can those be done if the water right is no longer associated with the property? It's hard to say. Can there be a controlled groundwater area if the groundwater is no longer still tied to the land? So we objected on these boxes that there's adverse effect because there's continuing historic use to convey contaminants to the river, and the area of use could move to less contaminated area, limiting remediation and use. So there's adverse effect if the water isn't cleaned up sufficiently. There's adverse effect to downstream water users if making this change results in less remediation than would occur if it wasn't. Beneficial use, in order for this water to be fully beneficially used, it should be remediated. I don't think folks will be as interested in using it given current dioxins and furan concerns, PCBs, cancer risk, that sort of thing. Possessory interests, CERCLA obligations may require to be used or treated. That's pretty uncertain. The water right did transfer from, you know, the potentially responsible parties to M2 Green and MLH. M2 Green gave the water right to MLH, but there were also covenants involved therein. There's also the administrative order of consent. The administrative order of consent does not currently name MLH as a potentially responsible party, but it also does not, you know, the appropriate paperwork to exclude them from being a potentially responsible party is not there either. So that's a lot of uncertainty when it comes through who owns that water right and who can control it. And then water quality. This is a large volume and it's lined out in state statute that there needs to be more evidence and consideration of water quality. And there's no additional scrutiny as a function that this is currently in the CERCLA process. There's a do not consume fish advisory downstream of the site. And there's restricted use associated with the covenant and potentially as a function of the outcome of the record of decision. The one thing we did not object to was the point of diversion, because we do know and we do support that groundwater is moving from the site to the Clark Fork River. So next steps, we have 15 days after the Department of Natural Resource and Conservation notifies us of any deficiencies to correct in our objection. And then the hearing must be scheduled within 90 days of the objection filing date, which was February 17th, unless all parties agree otherwise or there's good cause to extend. So we should theoretically know something by May 18th. But I'm anticipating there will be some considerable back and forth, given that the initial paperwork to file the change to the water right occurred in 2020, and now we're just seeing the public comment period in 2023. So that was a lot, but water rights are complicated. We're all invested in the water quality, and yeah.
I have a question. Peter, I remember, this is a while ago, what was the situation with the discharge permits?
What was the exchange situation with it? Well, it has been terminated.
Okay.
Terminated as a result of litigation through a county and the Clarkport Coalition and versus DEQ. As we took that to court and prevailed. And so the discharge permit no longer exists.
And it can't, I mean, is there a water right with that discharge permit?
That's separate.
Okay.
They were basing some of their calculations on assumptions based on the discharge permit.
Okay.
Yeah, and right now arsenic levels on the site are too high to actually meet non-deg requirements to apply for or secure another septic permit.
Okay.
Particularly at the volume that has occurred in the past.
Okay.
It seems to me one of your strongest arguments, at least in terms of results, would be the controlled groundwater limitation. If you prevail on this and they can't do a controlled groundwater, I think that would be a big stroke. So good work.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for researching that.
I've been told it's a novel argument. We shall see.
Novel argument.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is just don't plan any vacation time during that 15-day time.
Then they're done that.
It happened starting the 17th. So yeah, we're working on Dylan Jakes, our legal counsel, we're trying to prepare.
Good.
Well done.
Any questions for Elaine on this? Zoom? All right,
Thumbs up, buddy.
Buddy's happy. All right. Elena, if you prevail and we still have discharge, who owns the water?
So MLH will retain the right to use the water. And I don't think that Missoula County certainly isn't trying to stand in the way of beneficial use of that water. We just believe that it's premature because we're of where we are in the circular process, where we are in terms of understanding what needs to be done to fully remediate that water.
Okay. And then the map you showed that all the dots, were all of those showing high manganese, high arsenic? Or was this a combination of all of the results turned into one?
No, that was just one map that I pulled. But there's a lot of there's high arsenic, there's high manganese across most of the wastewater treatment ponds. It's not just a function of the discharge, it's a function of the fact that when that water was discharged, it altered the pH, it altered the dissolved oxygen and helped leach some of the heavy metals out of the belt rock. And that's in a lot of ways what we saw too upstream with Anaconda and the mining practices. But what we do know is that water from the mining practices didn't migrate all the way up to the industrial area. So it's quite clear that that's coming from Smurfit. And that's in part what also precludes septic or a large wastewater treatment plant there until the site is cleaned and remediated sufficiently. Something also to know is that the Montana Dam Safety Act has a requirement that the safety of the berms goes with the property, even if the person doesn't own those berms. So as we approach high water, that's something that the current property owners should consider as well. And particularly as we move forward into the remedial investigation and there's consideration of ARARs. We did clarify earlier today with Allie and Will that they haven't actually fully looked at or decided which ARRs will be taken into account. Does anybody remember what ARR stands for?
Applicable requirements
Rules.
and rules and requirements, I think.
Yeah. And so we're hopeful that our the Missoula County's floodplain regs will be taken into account as well, given that those wouldn't allow for ongoing riprap of something that doesn't meet the public good. But we'll see. We won't see that until the remedial investigation. So.
Has a acreage been defined for the plumes? Have they defined an area for plumes? Yeah.
No, there's still resistance to identifying a plume.
Is that what?
Source area.
Say again?
There's resistance. There has not been a plume map to date.
And they do that, and we do that on every site. Right?
We also typically do quarterly monitoring of groundwater on every site to assess.
We monitor for detect, not just those that exceed standards too. Right.
And on this site in particular too, given the very complex nature of groundwater and contaminant transport pathways, it's important to know that high water and groundwater and the way in which things are
relevant and appropriate.
Appropriate.
There you go.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian, on it.
So, yeah. I mean, I think some of those concerns are what will be brought up by folks at the meeting. So.
Maybe you guys should.
Your mic is on, Brian.
Submit it for the record.
Thank you. Quite a little bit to digest.
Yeah, we covered some ground tonight.
Any questions from the group?
So I had a question that's not just a public comment question. That's not related to something.
Sure.
Are they paying their taxes?
No, they're behind across the whole site by approximately $250,000. The preponderance of that is associated with the M2 Green parcel, but MLH is behind on all parcels that they own as well. One assignment has been taken on the industrial core, but they have 3 years to actually follow through on that. And the legislation that was passed to allow counties to recoup some of those, the requirements there have not been met yet. So the last time that Missoula County sued the property owner, you have to be a certain amount of money and you have to be 3 years behind. And so right now MLH is just a year behind, and on some parcels is only like, in arrears on taxes, like $5. Yeah.
It's make that in your resolution.
The assignment though
Money in there.
will happen in 2024.
I mean, I am.
If they don't pay it, then
I see.
Then it goes to J and K Investments out of the Flathead.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if there's more interest in that, I think Tyler should be here.
Tyler, I talked to him and he was incredibly informative about that whole process. I am wondering if it wouldn't be a great idea to add him to our April agenda.
Yeah, I just dove into water rights and like taxes.
Yeah, I think
I understand.
Good.
So do everything with the county?
Not yet. We're looking at some cuts though.
So in the commissioners meeting, I thought I heard 750,000 were in back taxes.
Yeah.
So,
That's
okay.
Yeah, so it's still $750,000 in back taxes across all parcels. So let me share my screen.
And the school district and fire district are aware of all this.
Obviously,
they're budgeting.
Okay, now I gotta get out of here. Oh, hey, I got a lot of tabs open.
Oh my.
So if you go to,
We have about 11 minutes.
this won't take too long, but I can show you all this fun skill where you can look up if your neighbors or large giant entities are paying their taxes or not. So here you go to Sorry, I have to move the Zoom box on this little thing. Okay. So here, if you click on here, it shows MLH. And then you go to taxes and then it says delinquent, assignment taken. And then you're like, how much are you behind on taxes? And you click payoff. And so that is $158,775.68 today. Tomorrow, you get some extra fees and fines. And so the parcel that is most delinquent is this one that's still M2 green. And so I don't really know what's going to happen there, but that's the most delinquent. That's 460,900. So yeah.
Is that an area where large portion of contamination might reside in that?
Yeah, that's why they're not.
And aren't they insolvent? I thought M2 Green was insolvent.
Yeah, I think Missoula County settled with MLH, but wasn't able to get a hold of M2 Green.
Wait, so Elena, if you hit taxes and then
you have
to hit something else because otherwise it comes up as.
Yeah, these are their taxes for the current year, and then you hit payoff.
And you can go to history and you can see when there you go.
0000000 2011.
Okay. As a Missoula County taxpayer, I just find this offensive. And knowing the history, Rock 10, West Brock, whatever they're called now, closed this place that was perfectly operating permitted pulp mill so that they could make more money running their mills in other parts of the country. They didn't pay. Now they set up a sham front group that has no resources and you can't do, anyway, it's a disgrace. And it's a disgrace what's happened here, to use Donald Trump's words. Seriously, this is bad.
It's bigly bad.
I think these companies can damn well afford to pay the taxes and for the cleanup, by the way, given the profits that the handsome profits they've made by closing this mill, consolidating their operations in other parts of this country. As a Missoula County taxpayer, I'm offended. And I think that we ought to know a whole lot more about it as Missoula County taxpayers in this county. I think it's wrong. That's my public comment.
Duly noted.
May I ask a question?
Go for it. This is Don.
Why can't the county seize the water rights in lieu of taxes?
So that's an interesting question, Don. And we cannot, because currently under state law, you can put a lien on personal property, which is like a car or a mobile home or a house or something like that. And you can put a lien on real property, which is land, but you cannot put a lien on a water right. And so a water right can be severed from property. The taxes would then also decrease because the valuation of the land would decrease.
Sure.
And that water right can be sold elsewhere.
But I
without being able to put a lien on it.
But the idea of the exercise is to keep these sleazoids from selling the water.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a separate thing that didn't,
I don't think you'll get the legislature to change that law because they're not.
Well, currently it's one-off. We did talk to other counties to see if this was something that had occurred to them. There was a legislator who was interested in examining this, but anything that passed in this legislature wouldn't affect the change of use application that's already been submitted to date.
That's true.
So, and there's more than enough to be concerned about when it just comes to water quality.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. At present, using the water quality to stall the sleazy depletion of the water is a good idea, but that can't last forever.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. They're separate arguments.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Don.
Thanks.
We are getting close to the end. Any other comments for Elena?
Good job.
That was excellent.
Really good job.
There's a lot involved, and that's why they have a water court as opposed to judicial.
Well, the hearing would come in front of the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation.
It's not going to the water court?
No, this is an administrative hearing.
All right.
Separate lane.
I have a general question. I know at one point, I believe the Clarkport Coalition talked about coming up with an estimate for, removal of all the, the floodplain ponds and.
The Ian Magruder study, which I think.
Yeah.
I've been out of the office the last 3 days, but I did see Andrew did send something to me today.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
On my to-do list as we were talking about it, to visit with him, but I've just been gone the last 3 days.
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't realize it was that. I was just, when you were talking about money and costs and things like that, that is, there's this sort of hypothetical that's out there is, what.
We can talk to Andrew, but that might be something we could add to the April.
I was going to ask. Yeah, definitely.
I'd be wondering. I didn't realize it was available or nearly available.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
We just got it today.
Yeah.
No, there was
I thought I probably just missed some emails.
No, today.
Oh.
Okay.
I think another component, there had been ongoing discussion from developers, Steve, and some former football players and some other folks or something. There was a bunch of interest about potentially putting a large development out there the size of Hamilton. And my understanding currently is that is no longer a partnership that's in operation. So I think that's just another, that's not something I have direct knowledge of, but I just thought it was important for this group to understand.
Steve said that at the meeting after the meeting. There's not anything happening now.
I mean, we've heard fantastic claims like that for 13 years, so I don't know why that would end.
Well, Disney's buying the mill site. Did you hear that one?
That is a rumor, folks.
Sounds like a Mickey Mouse.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think
I want to get out of Florida.
I think it'd be also good for us to keep putting on the agenda the runoff reports and predictions for this ongoing year, given the snow and atmospheric rivers and things like that. I'll email you.
Okay. That's okay.
Okay, well, I have 3 things already on the agenda, so we're going to have a long meeting. This is what I'm copying. This removal topic might be a really good one to revisit. Update on the 16th meeting this month, and taxes. Those 3 things already are a big meeting. So I would argue that the meeting might be a long one.
We really do need to pick a date, and maybe that can be an email sent out to everybody so that everybody has a say in it. I think that's it. We'll talk offline and figure out a way to get people's input. I think a doodle poll would probably work best, Survey Monkey, whatever, but I think that needs to happen. I think we really need to get that on the calendar.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be good. So do we want to invite Tyler to our meeting?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
And if he can't make it, then I can see if Dylan can, or I can get them to teach me to eloquently speak to that.
Okay. Do you want to ask Tyler? Thank you.
And that is?
Tyler Gurnett is the Working recorder from Missoula County. He's come out and he spoke to us before, and he's extremely knowledgeable.
Yeah, he can also speak to, there were a bunch of questions about covenants between private property owners. And then also in the commissioner meeting, we had the EPA speak to institutional controls. So we could discuss some of that more as well.
I think we'd like to, I don't know if we'll have time in April, but I'd really like to spend maybe 15 minutes in April just talking about outreach and education and ways that we can really do that. Dave and I had a really productive conversation about that. And I think we both have some really great ideas that we can chat about at the next meeting about ways we can really make that happen.
Yeah, I thought that that's what Moira or Dana were going to talk about tonight. I didn't.
Well, Dana's gone. He's
Yeah.
in Denver, and I think he wanted to. I don't know if he wanted to be. I don't know. I think we need to. I think we need to drive that discussion.
Mm. Yeah.
I think there's also a difference between like connecting and having coffee and actually being heard, or driving cleanup, or driving community understanding risk and ability to involve themselves in the process.
Mm-hmm. And I think just executing those things like Clark Fork Coalition's newsletter, FWP's newsletter, just different avenues that we can engage and educate and involve.
Yeah. And so once this meeting is done, will be working to get information about Smurfit on the Missoula Engage site.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also that great, the environmental justice folks at did a great article.
I saw that. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And then the commissioners also invited me on their podcast, Tip of Spear, to talk about Smurfit Stone and highlight some of the concerns and what's occurring right now. So I have a bit of prep to do because all that's supposed to be ready Monday. Smooth.
Back up.
This?
Yes. Thanks. And we are right down to the end of the meeting. We'll stick around for people who want to talk. Are there any other discussion items? Do folks on the Zoom have any other discussion items they'd like to share?
No, I just want to thank the group. I think it was a very good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to have you here too.
Yeah. April 6th is our next meeting, 6 o'clock, same deal. It will be announced on Zoom, and here in Missoula, want to show up here in person.
And I'll follow up with the trustees too. I did talk to CSKT, but I'll make sure information about that meeting gets to folks as well. Is the meeting going to be here then again? I don't know. I meant
it'll be in Frenchtown. They had parent teacher conferences tonight.
So are we going to be here or?
We're going to be in Frenchtown.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're in Frenchtown.
Same.
High school.
That's not working very well, in my opinion.
So, do we want to go to the fire station then, guys?
We need a better, this microphone set up. Everybody could participate and hear what was being said. The Frenchtown room with lots of people walking through and equipment, it's not adequate.
Yeah. So how does everybody feel about meeting in town?
Yeah.
It's great.
It's great for the town folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's to represent Frenchtown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just don't get a lot of community. And again, that's really the impetus of getting the word out to get people to come to the meetings. And so if we have them in town, then it really doesn't make sense. So let me try the fire station and see what I can find out.
That might be an appropriate ask for DEQ and EPA. I do what I can with county resources, but this is our state of the art that I can't move. And my computer died last time. My battery is on my computer. So
Bruce, if you would, if I may, if you could get the meeting agenda out early enough that we can announce where exactly the meeting's going to be held.
I agree.
That would work really well. So,
make the call
so we'll have an opportunity to find the appropriate spot for the April meeting. It will be at 6 o'clock. And we'll have it in Frenchtown as long as we can find appropriate
We
spot.
can find
Is
a
that right?
spot. Yep.
Excellent.
And this spot is open if there is, if there is a remote speaker or something like that.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a decent speaker.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah. Elena will just take.
on Zoom could hear.
Seems like it seems like for it's a small investment that I think the EPA community involvement coordinator could provide for some technology, for some hardware for this, don't you think? I mean, that's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, discussion.
Is that Dana?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I'll look into it too. I've reached out to other departments to see if any of them have traveling stuff, but
I'm going to ask the fire station. I know they've done some upgrades because they had to during COVID. They had to. So I'll ask them what their capabilities are and figure something out.
Great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, is there anything from your end of the world?
I don't think so.
Jen, it's so nice to see you in person.
So for all of the new folks, we have all three of the participating leadership for the CAG and Barry, Bruce, and Ben here tonight, which is wonderful.
It is wonderful.
It is. All right. So we are past our normal time. If there's no further discussion, I want to thank all the participants tonight. It was a very good, super informative discussion. Hope to see you all again next month at 6 o'clock, hopefully in Frenchtown. And for those of you on Zoom, thank you so much for participating.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.